Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing GlenQuagmire in the 5-minute pool on ICC. Alright guys, it's Scandy time. Middle video of the day, second of 3 that I'm posting today. Let's mix it up with the Scandy, why not? And by mix up, I mean not mix it up at all, because this is my normal move. Okay, so against d4, I like playing e5. And this is also the move that I recommend in the Scandinavian repertoire for chessable. Black just tries to destroy the pawns in the middle immediately. So if white takes on e5, I'll trade on d1 and then play knight c6. And even though you don't gain the pawn back immediately, and you might even sacrifice the pawn, black gets a ton of compensation here. So he's pausing a little bit. Against this move, I think I want to go bishop b4 and pin. I wonder if he's looking up the video I posted about chessable, because I reviewed this line in that chessable video. Highly doubtful, but you never know. Okay, knight f3. Yeah, so he's just developing and keeping the tension. These lines can be a bit tricky. Note that he's not threatening my queen, of course. It's pinned. There is some tension on this square. I could just play takes and liquidate a little bit, but I could also increase the pressure with knight c6. If I play knight c6, though, bishop to d2 will break the pin. So I think I should take here, if I'm remembering my analysis correctly. And if he takes with the queen, we can just swap, and that's a very equal endgame. So let's do that. I'm okay with equality from this position. Let's just play knight here. I could also take on c3 and try to wreck his pawn structure a little bit, but I think it's better just to keep bishop takes c3 as an option for later. If knight b5, we can just play knight a6 and cover the c7 pawn. No big deal. So yeah, I'm already satisfied with this position. Let's just castle here. Probably he'll go long. I wonder if knight g4 is a problem now, though. Knight g4 trying to attack this f2 pawn. I could also just play something cautious like a6. That might be better. Knight g4, he might play bishop e1, or maybe even like knight d5 looks interesting. So yeah, I think I should cover the b5 square. Just thinking what's the best way to do that. a6 or c6. Let's play a6. Just make sure a knight never steps on this square. Yeah, f3 just stops any knight g4 business. I could play bishop d7 now. Rook d8 also comes to mind, attacking the knight. I kind of like rook d8, so I think I'm going to play it. Yeah, let's just attack this knight, see where it goes. I'd like to play my knight to c6 if I could, so I think this move makes a lot of sense. He could play bishop g5 and pin me, but then I get to take on c3. And after b takes c3, maybe even play knight bd7 and try to proceed with a slightly better structure. Okay, so he pulls the knight back. Wonder how he's going to get this light square bishop out, though. Probably develop it through d3, if I had to guess. Okay, so now bishop e6 could be played. Bishop d3, knight e5, something to that effect. I could also play knight e5 directly and try to stop him from playing bishop d3, but I think I'll just do this. Looks fine. If bishop d3, knight e5, bishop f5, I'm thinking about trading and then playing the knight into c4. What else could I do here? g6 could be played, but then bishop g5, I slightly weaken my dark squares. Is my only concern about that. Okay, I'm just going to do this, and then in the event that bishop f5 is played, I'll just swap and play g6. I think g6 is well timed then. Maybe he could still play bishop g5 actually, but I don't know that it's a big deal. He's going to play bishop g5 right now. Okay. Well, I think taking here and at least damaging his pawn structure seems good. Okay, so let's give him some bad pawns here and then pull this back. Maybe taking and then playing bishop takes a2 was possible, but my bishop... Well, I was going to say it maybe would get trapped after c4, but I could always escape through b3, so perhaps that's not a big deal. So I probably should have considered that line a little closer. Take, take, bishop takes a2. But here I have the two bishops. White has a weak pawn on d3. Maybe I can go to work and try to beat them in an endgame. If h6, probably bishop f4. Yeah, but I think it's better to play this now, even though they are going to come back and attack that. Knight d5. Take, take. Then he can't take here because of rook c8. Yeah, that looks good. Let's do that. So just trading one pair of minor pieces. If knight f5, I can put my bishop on f6. Looks active there. So knight e4 instead. Okay. Now if I take, then b3 might be possible. Maybe f5 here. Yeah, let's go f5. I'm thinking even about pushing g5 soon. Ah, they can play that move. Missed that one. Okay, got to drop this back, and he might be able to take, although I do have rook c8, and then possibly bishop takes a2 after that. We'll see. Not 100% sure. So he's allowing me the opportunity to play bishop d8 and defend. Do I take that? Probably should. Yeah, let's do it. This bishop covers e8. I think he could have taken on c7 there. I'm not positive, but I didn't see a reason why white couldn't. Okay, so my rook is kind of stuck in the corner is the problem. But on the whole, it shouldn't be too bad. Does he want knight d5? Maybe. Okay, well, let's just push this first. And we'll go here and attack that bishop. Maybe bishop to f6 coming. So if bishop d4, okay, he's going to play this way, but now I get this out at least. Bishop here. Try to target the d3 pawn. I feel like he's let me off the hook a little bit with his play. See where he goes with the rook now. I mean, that knight might be coming to e4, though. It could be a force on that square. Again, we'll just see what he does. Okay, let's play b6, attack that bishop. Now we get this move in, though, right? Here he takes b6, I take d4, he takes f6, I have king g7. That's working. Maybe he had knight d5, I don't know. But I think this wins a piece for me. He's going to have a few pawns, but yeah, the piece is definitely worth it. Here I think I can play rook d8. Just making sure that holds up. Yeah, so attacking this knight, which is in turn defending the rook. Okay, let's come here. Threatening rook e2. And if king over, I have rook e3. So I'm not going to try to neutralize these pawns yet. I'm just going to kind of attack his king. And this d3 pawn especially. I might have to zigzag my king over if he starts checking me. I'll gladly give up the h6 pawn if necessary. Okay, so let's do this. And then we have bishop c2 followed by d3 coming. So this must be good. Okay, push that. And we can push again. And we can queen. Yeah, his pawns are not dangerous enough. We just bring our bishop back and defend. Bishop a6 coming next. He resigns. So we win the endgame. We convert. But it was a little touch and go at times, and I believe that I blundered in allowing knight c3. So maybe I have to play c6 here, but knight c3 covers the c file, and I think after bishop f7, he could have taken on c7. I'm not sure why he didn't. He must have got scared by some sort of tactic or something, like maybe rook c8 scared him off, but he just has bishop e5 then. At best, I would get my pawn back, but more than likely, I'll be just down a pawn. So, otherwise, I think I played it pretty well. I wonder right here after c5, take, king g7. Or actually right here, rather. I wonder if he could have played knight d5 and not win the piece right away. Like, rook takes f6 looks incredibly obvious, but knight d5 might actually win the piece back entirely. So we'll check that out when we look at the engine. So, a Scandi, and d4 is well met by this e5 idea, trying to destroy white's center pawn. Hence, I called it the Central Destroyer chapter in the Scandinavian repertoire I wrote for Chessable. Black can also play knight c6. This is like a backup move if you want to keep pressure on d4 and not create pawn tension in the center. But e5 is well known to be fine for black. Knight c3 and bishop b4. So had white taken here, black is supposed to take and then play knight c6. And with white's king being in the center and also with e5 being difficult to hold, black has great play. If f4 is played, you go bishop f5 and then you get ready to castle. And white can try to hold on to their pawn, but it's very dangerous to do so. Just to show you some sort of sample continuation here. Let's say something like this happened. Even lines where black plays f6 and gambits a pawn are incredibly promising for black, because just look at white's backward development and awkward king and the weaknesses that they have in their position. There's so many ideas for black, ways you can cause your opponent problems here. So white doesn't want any part of that. So knight c3 attacking my queen. Now you can do this, but I think this leads to perhaps a slightly better position for white with the double attack here and here. White is guaranteed to win the material back. So I think bishop b4 is slightly more accurate. And I'm just going to add the engine in right here. Yeah, I think they played knight f3, and I took on d4. I think knight c6 is also possible, but taking on d4 and just immediately taking care of the tension is fine. And as you saw in the game, we just went into a queenless middle game where I don't think black had anything to complain about. So we traded. I just played knight f6. You might say, like, well, why not take and double isolate white's pawns right away? But I think the dark square presence that white will get in return for these doubled pawns does make up for the weakness. You can see that the engine greatly prefers white in this case. So you don't have to rush that exchange on c3. So I just developed. If knight b5 is played, I think knight a6 or bishop a5 is fine. It's a pretty temporary attack on this pawn. So no big deal. Note that if, for instance, here, and then white tries to crank up the pressure with bishop f4, I think you can play knight d5 here and attack these two guys. Again, the engine's claiming like some modest edge for white, but it's really minimal at best. So bishop d2, castle queenside, and now a6. Maybe here I can play slightly better. Like this rook d8 move the engine is saying, possibly more accurate. I really wanted to go and attack f2, so play like knight g4, but I was worried that they might move this knight. In particular, I thought knight d5 was a concern, whereupon they're attacking this and also here. I don't think I can take on f2. I mean, if I take f2, they could even play bishop takes b4 and hit this rook, so that looks terrible. And if this happens, then they're solving the f2 issue, and they're still attacking c7. I don't like this one bit for black. So I played a6, which actually looks fine. But yeah, maybe rook d8 can also be considered. So a6, f3, rook d8. f3 looks slow, but I think white was genuinely concerned about the knight g4 move coming. Maybe bishop e2 is an improvement, developing and covering that square. So rook d8, the knight came back. Now I felt completely fine. Knight g3, bring the bishop out to e6, bishop d3. I went and attacked that light square bishop. Yeah, here I was really expecting bishop f5. This seemed like the natural continuation of white's play. And I was considering taking and then playing g6 and just trying to kick this knight away. Bishop g5, they can counterattack here. Knight ed7, holding that knight. Looks about equal. With a structure that's nearly symmetric, unless one side has some very obvious piece play that they can pursue, it's probably going to be close to equal. I mean, if there's no tactics or some way that the other side can very obviously cause the other problems. So bishop g5, on the other hand, now I get to grab the bishop pair and create a pawn weakness in white's camp. So I felt I was for choice at this point. Maybe I should just move this knight. I don't know why I didn't think about that. I played the bishop back here, but yeah, knight d7 looks decent, as does taking and then grabbing a2. I wonder if there's a problem with this, because c4, I thought I could escape this way, but maybe white gains counterplay somehow. King d2, threatening rook b1, bishop a4, knight h5. Okay, so they can go after this pawn. White does have activity, and it is just one pawn, and this pawn's not very far advanced. So the computer thinks white has play. But knight d7 solves the attack on the knight, and I don't have to retreat this bishop, so probably should have preferred that. So bishop e7, white played king c2. I played h6, attacking the bishop. I think white wisely preserves this. They don't want to take on f6 and give me two bishops versus two knights. So here, yeah, now I played a little bit daredevil with my c-pawn. I don't think this was necessary. You can see the computer's top move is just c6. But I was trying to avoid creating any unnecessary weaknesses in putting my pawns all on light squares on this wing. Most likely, though, this is fine, so I should have done this. Instead, I played knight d5. Take, take. The point being that they can't take here because of rook c8 with the pin. But following knight e4, yeah, f5 was a mistake, just allowing knight c3. Maybe still c6, but now with the knight on e4, I felt like they might try to use the d6 square, either with their bishop or their knight. Bishop e6 is fine. Again, white cannot take here. What if they just hide their king, like king b1? Rook d8, counterattack this pawn. Black's still better. All right. So here, knight c3. And here, maybe c6 is the best way to save the pawn. Maybe the only way to save the pawn and also the bishop at the same time. But I played here, and yeah, I just don't see any reason why white shouldn't take. I can go here, but then bishop e5, this looks like the best square. And if I want to win the pawn back, I would have to try bishop takes a2, but I think after b3, this bishop is never going home. And king b2 is a threat, trying to round it up. What's black to do? Yeah, that's just lost piece. So instead, rook e1 was played, and I played bishop d8, covering the pawn. I hate to block in my rook like that, but they were probably going to take c7 if I played like bishop f8, so I figured this was good to do. Now white started playing very actively, probably to their detriment. Rook e5 attacks the f5 pawn, but I started using my kingside pawns aggressively. Bishop c5, bishop f6. I felt like white was giving me some unnecessary tempos with these moves. It's still tactically complex, though. Like here, knight d5 was possible. Not sure I even saw that move at the time. This attacks my bishop and also the pawn. If I take on e4, they take check, and suddenly white will get two minor pieces for the rook and will be winning, most likely. So on knight d5, what would I have to do? King f7. Just defending here. If knight takes c7, now I could play this and double attack these two pieces. But white could go here and take it into an opposite color bishop endgame now. My winning chances would be severely diminished here. Instead, rook b4, and again, I get these tempo moves, attacking the bishop. Okay, so moment of truth right here. This is where the game was determined, because I played c5. I considered bishop d4 to be a blunder, but I didn't have a ton of time to check my calculations. It's possible that this move, yep, that was a mistake by me. So the move I thought would win me material is a blunder, and I bet it's because of rook takes b6, c takes d4, and then that knight d5 move I was mentioning, because that places both of my bishops in the line of fire, and I think white's coming out somewhat on top there. So instead I should have played bishop e7, just retreating and attacking the rook. Rook c4, probably c5, and black is much, much better with two bishops, a lot of space, good pawn play, this rook being honestly on the verge of being trapped, right? Yeah, what if b5? White has to give up the exchange. Yeah, nowhere for that rook to run. We've taken away all these squares, thanks to our bishops and pawns. Yeah, so bishop e7 was stronger. Does the rook just get trapped by force here? So if rook c4, c5, followed by this, what if rook a4? Here I can't play b5 because they can take using the pin, but I guess even here black has great chances. Rook d8. And now they can't take a6 because d4 would hang. White's pieces are very precariously placed here. I'm not surprised that the advantage is this big. Yeah, b5 becomes a threat too. Probably winning. So I did this. Take. Now, white automatically took on f6. I mean, I can't really blame them. They took 2 seconds on that move, but yep, knight d5. That was the move. And all of a sudden, I'm up a bishop. I've got to move, and I still can't save the piece. White's going to win it back. I could throw in this check, but just king d2 doesn't solve anything. I could win the d3 pawn. I could play bishop takes d3, king takes, and then move this bishop, but this looks a lot worse. You see that eval almost +2 for white, even though it's even material. That's because my d pawn is blockaded, and white's king is much more involved than my king is. So this is probably losing. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if white could win the a or the d pawn, or even just starting to advance these pawns would be putting me under a lot of strain to defend. My bishop is pretty ineffective. It's just defending the d4 pawn, not doing anything else. Lost. Lost for black. But after rook takes f6, I play king g7, and all of a sudden white has 2 pieces under attack. They went here, but rook d8, again exposing the lack of coordination white experiences here. Maybe sacrificing the exchange would provide slightly better chances. So taking on g6 and then moving the knight. White does have 1 pawn to show for it. Black should win, I think, but with the time situation, I may not get to the point where I can hope to play precisely in converting this. It would just be a time scramble. As played, though, I thought this was pretty easy because I was able to win the d3 pawn. White's pawns were not far enough advanced to cause a big stink. Here I thought white might continue checking me, but if they do that, I was just going to approach the rook in a zigzag pattern. Note that I shouldn't go to the 6th rank here because they would play check and skewer my king and my bishop. But slowly approaching like this, white's going to run out of checks, and I'm going to win this pawn, I think. Yeah, and as played, I didn't really see anything white could do. We get bishop c2 check in, and then my d pawn is too powerful. White's b pawn, not quite where it should be for white to hope to defend. And we're just able to stop the pawns. Okay, so the result of this game hinged on that tactical operation that I undertook with c5. I thought that was going to win me material, but if white had paused for a moment to consider their options here, they might have found knight d5. In fact, I'm sure they would find knight d5. It's not a very difficult move to find if you rule out rook takes f6. So on the whole, though, I think this game went pretty well. I messed up slightly in regards to the c-pawn, but fortunately that didn't hurt me, although they could have played bishop takes c7 right here. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll be back again soon with another one. Talk to you guys later. Bye.